I found out my wife was cheating because a junior employee from her company messaged me out of nowhere. I thought it was spam. Then I opened her MacBook, saw the DoorDash contact wasn't DoorDash at all, and realized my marriage had been a lie for months. So I got revenge by gathering proof, getting her fired, taking the house, and then filing for divorce. She works in marketing at the regional office of a pretty well known company. I'm in a senior position at a software company. We've always been the type to, chase our careers hard. And honestly, I think that's a big reason we clicked in the first place. You probably won't be shocked that we don't have kids. We never really wanted them. And I've always believed nobody should treat having children like a casual decision. In all the years we've been together, cheating was never an issue for us. I was genuinely grateful for that. I figured we were both too busy climbing the ladder to mess around. Looking back, that was a dumb assumption. If someone wants to cheat, they'll make time for it. But I had no real reason to suspect my wife, so I used that idea to reassure myself. What makes it worse is that before this happened, I honestly didn't know any better. As far as I could tell, there were zero warning signs. Maybe if I'd paid closer attention, I would have noticed something. But I'm jumping ahead. This really kicked off about a year ago when my wife got promoted at work. She's always been a hard worker, and she's been with that company for over 10 years. One day she came home and told me she'd landed a major promotion. She was moving into an executive role. That was a big deal for us because, like I said, we've always been career driven. We had a feeling she might get it, but we weren't sure. So when it was official, it felt huge. The job meant more responsibility, but it also came with a massive raise. And that was obviously one of the best parts. For a while, most things stayed the same. The main difference was she started staying later at work. It wasn't anything wild. If you're a top marketing executive, longer hours don't exactly sound weird, especially at the start when you're still settling into the role. Some days she'd come home early, which was nice. But most of the time, instead of getting home around 6 p.m. like she used to, it became more like 7:30 or 8. I'd tell her once in a while to slow down and take it easy. But we're both workaholics, so I knew my advice wasn't going to change much. Then about 2 weeks ago, everything shifted. It started with a LinkedIn message from someone I didn't know. I'm usually quick to respond on there because, for me, LinkedIn is business. The message was just a basic hello. I decided to look at the person's profile before replying. She worked at the same company as my wife, but her position was clearly lower level. It was a woman. I'll call her Madison. I replied with a polite greeting back, figuring she'd eventually get to the point. But she didn't respond again until the next day, after work hours. She asked if I was my wife's husband, and I told her I was. Right then, I knew this wasn't about business at all. My first thought was that it was some sad attempt to go after a married guy. I couldn't think of another reason she'd message me and lead with that question. Still, I confirmed it. Then she sent another message. She said she wanted to talk to me about something private, and she wasn't sure if I'd be open to it, but it was about my wife. The second I read that, my stomach dropped and I got anxious. At first, I thought maybe my wife had been hurt or in an accident, but the message was already a day old and nothing like that had happened, so my mind went in a different direction. I started wondering if my wife had been acting too aggressive at work, too controlling, too bossy, maybe even bullying people. That's what I ended up assuming. I figured this woman wanted to warn me before she went to HR or something. So I told her I was willing to hear her out. She suggested we meet in person, somewhere neutral. I didn't like that idea at all. I told her to just say what she needed to say in writing. I wanted it documented. Whatever this was, I needed it in text. She hesitated, but finally she agreed. Then she sent me a full paragraph, and reading it felt like getting hit in the face. She said, basically, she didn't know whether I'd rather not know, but she was certain my wife was sleeping with some junior employees. She added that maybe my wife and I had some kind of arrangement, and if that was true, she was sorry for butting in. But she didn't think it was right for me to be kept in the dark. She also begged me not to mention her name if I confronted my wife. She said she knew it could cost her job, but she felt like she was doing the right thing and hoped I'd understand. I reread her message probably 5 times before it actually registered. She was telling me my wife was sleeping with junior co-workers. Could I even believe that? I hadn't noticed a single sign. She didn't come home smelling like someone else's perfume. She didn't act strange when she got back from work. The only thing I could point to was that she'd started coming home later. And yeah, that could fit this. It took me a while to respond. When I finally did, I told her I appreciated her telling me and that what she said would stay confidential on my end. About 10 minutes later, my head filled up with questions. How many guys? When did it start? Were they doing this at work? How did she even know? I dumped all of that into one message and sent it. She replied that she didn't know everything, but she was sure it was at least 2 guys because she'd overheard them talking about it. That's how she found out. She said it might have been some kind of inside joke, but it didn't sound like a joke to her. She also said they were the type to work late nights. She assumed they might be doing stuff in the building, but she couldn't prove where it happened. She told me she'd heard the conversation about 2 months ago, and it had been eating at her ever since. Then she saw my wife whispering to one of those guys in a more hidden spot, and that brought it all back to the front of her mind. That's when she decided she had to tell me, and she apologized for taking so long. She also explained that she reported directly to my wife, so speaking up made her feel like a traitor. She said she didn't hate my wife or anything like that, but what was happening wasn't right. Honestly, most of me believed her. I just couldn't fully understand why. Maybe because it seemed unlikely someone would go that far just to lie to me. Still, I wondered if it could be some kind of workplace enemy trying to blow up my marriage. I didn't know. And since I'd never even suspected my wife before, part of me didn't want to accept it. But something about it felt real. I thanked Madison again and told her I'd handle it however I thought made sense, and that I wouldn't drag her into it. I wanted to bring it up to my wife right away and watch her reaction, or just confront her head on. But I already knew how easy it would be for her to deny everything. It was obvious my smartest move was to try to find out the truth myself. That way, either I'd come up empty and prove this woman was lying, or I'd find something that backed her up, and I could go from there. So I forced myself to stay calm and wait for a solid chance to snoop. When my wife got home that night, everything felt normal. I did my best to act normal too. It wasn't that hard since I still wasn't fully sure what to believe. My opportunity showed up about 4 days later when she went to the salon to get her hair done. She usually takes her laptop with her, but this time she didn't. I already knew her password, so I logged in without any trouble. She has a MacBook, so I went straight to her messages. Based on what Madison told me, I was looking for chats that seemed like they were with younger guys, people who worked under her. A lot of the contact names meant nothing to me, so I decided to open as many conversations as I could and just scan. Then I saw a message preview that said something like, "I'll call you when I get back, so you..." and the sender name, DoorDash. I almost laughed even in that moment, so I clicked it and started reading the whole thread. Turns out she'd saved a guy's number, someone named Tyler, under DoorDash, so it wouldn't look suspicious if I happened to glance at her screen and saw messages popping up. Right there, I got furious. And once I hit the part where they were trading explicit texts, I honestly felt like I was going to lose it. He'd sent her photos. She hadn't sent any back, but she was clearly into what he sent and responded like it turned her on. At one point I realized I'd been staring at the screen, blank, for a few minutes. I don't know how to explain how bad it felt. Like it was just crushing to see it with my own eyes. I backed out of the chat, but not before I saved as much as I could as evidence. Then I went right back in and kept scrolling, looking for other guys. I won't drag you through every detail, but there were 2 more employees. I could tell they worked with her because work came up maybe 5% of the time, and the other 95% was just graphic stuff. From their pictures, none of them looked older than 30. That made it even worse in my head. I grabbed every bit of evidence I could, and after that, I just sat there, not even sure what my next move was supposed to be. Do I just confront her and file for divorce? Is that really it? This is a woman who walks in the door every day, hugs me, kisses me, and acts like nothing is wrong. We've slept together multiple times since her cheating started. Now I know I have to get tested, and that's a top priority. I'm doing that. But I also need to figure out what I'm going to do, and I want opinions. Do I stop at divorce? Or do I hit her harder than that? Do I find a way to really hurt her? Because this feels like the worst kind of betrayal, and I honestly can't stand her anymore. Edit. I'm wrapping up a long day at work, and I appreciate all the advice and comments I've gotten about this. Someone said I basically get one shot at getting back at her, because once I divorce her and close that chapter, I won't be able to act on this pain the same way. I know I'm not going to stop feeling this anytime soon, so I'm ready to make sure I use this chance. I'm not going to cheat back. I don't even want to, but I'll come up with something and I'll update you when I do. Update. Hey everyone, I made an earlier post about my wife getting promoted and then cheating on me with junior employees, 3 of them that I know about. It's been a few months since that post, and honestly, I completely forgot to update you in the middle of everything going on. But now that it's finished, it popped back into my head, and I'm here to tell you how it all ended. It's good news. When I finally made up my mind that I was going to confront my wife, I went and got tested for STDs first. The test came back positive for gonorrhea. I didn't have symptoms, and they gave me a prescription to treat it. But I was beyond angry, because she's the only woman I've slept with since we got married. So I didn't get it from anyone else. I got it from her, and she most likely picked it up from one of her new partners. That's when I knew for sure I was confronting her. When she came home that night, I was waiting in the living room. I told her to sit down before she could even take her coat off. She looked worried, but I don't think she knew exactly what was coming yet. I said it straight. I know you've been cheating on me. I watched her go still. Then she kind of collapsed into herself and covered her face with her hands. I listed the guys I knew about, the ones I had confirmed. I told her what I knew, but I didn't tell her how I found out. Then I said, "One of your boyfriends gave you gonorrhea, and you gave it to me." I held the test result up right in front of her. She glanced at it, then covered her face again. Honestly, that reaction just made me more pissed. I sat there waiting for her to say something. She wasn't crying, and I could tell she'd heard every word I said. After about 3 minutes, she finally looked up, shook her head, and said, "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry." The way she said it might have worked if she'd scratched my dream car, but not for cheating on me with multiple men. By then I could tell she was crying, but it wasn't full-on sobbing or anything. It didn't change how I felt. "You're not sleeping here tonight. Go find somewhere else to stay. Tomorrow morning I'm calling a divorce lawyer first thing. You should do the same so we can get this done fast." That's the first time she said anything that even came close to begging. "Babe, we've been together almost 20 years, can't we?" And then she just stopped. I think she wanted to ask if we could fix it, but even she knew that wasn't happening. Not after what she'd done. All I told her was that I'd wait in the living room while she packed whatever she needed for the next week. We'd deal with the rest of her stuff later. She got up, went to the bedroom, and that was basically the end of our confrontation. Honestly, it was probably the most grown-up way to handle a screw-up that big. Eventually, she left the house, and after that, we moved into the divorce stage. We both hired lawyers. Papers got served and signed fast, and before long, we were in the middle of proceedings. Luckily for me, I had plenty of proof of her cheating, including my STD test. My divorce attorney presented it all in a way that really hit hard. Total rock star. No joke. The process dragged on for a while, but it ended in my favor. Her promotion meant she was making a lot more money than I was, so I ended up with a pretty solid alimony judgment, even though I honestly don't need it. When it starts coming in, I'll probably just use it on a hobby or two. The house was a fight because we owned it together, but since she had the higher income, The court figured she'd be in a better position to find somewhere else to live. So, I kept the house too. We each already had our own cars, and she kept hers, which made sense. There wasn't really a way for me to take that from her with how everything played out. That's how we officially split for good, and I was satisfied with what I got. But I still wasn't finished. At first, I wanted to go after the guys she cheated with, but the more I thought about it, the more I backed off. They were employees, and I couldn't be sure it didn't start with pressure or coercion. Even if they seemed into it later, she was their boss, and she abused that power. It felt messy, and I decided it wasn't worth getting tangled up in them. With her, though, it was simple. I sent an HR report to her company from an anonymous email address. I told them one of their top executives was pushing junior employees into sleeping with her, and I suggested they open an investigation. They did. Long story short, they found she was guilty of what I reported. They questioned several employees who reported under her, and it sounded like there was even a fourth person I never knew about. The woman who originally warned me about all of this kept feeding me insider updates. Officially, all I got were emails saying an investigation was starting and later that the investigation was finished. Her punishment? She got fired. I'm sure she can find another job based on skill alone, but with sexual misconduct allegations hanging over her, it's not going to be easy. As far as I know, she's still looking right now. And yeah, I realized that could mess with my alimony, but I didn't need that money to survive. Plus, she has plenty in the bank to keep making the payments. If she doesn't, I'm fine going to court and making her figure it out. That's her problem, not mine. We've talked maybe twice since the divorce, and it was strictly about final details of separating our lives. I don't want to speak to her again, and with how things are going, I probably won't have to. Honestly, life is good as it is. Revenge doesn't erase the pain of getting cheated on by your wife of that many years, but it helps a whole lot. It felt good, and I'm glad I followed through. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Found out I had a teenage daughter from a one-night stand and took her in. We bonded for 3 years, but now her other dad, who abandoned her, wants to apologize. In November of 2019, I, 42M, was playing a game with my wife, 42F, and our kids, 9 and 4M, when someone knocked on the door. When I opened it, 2 officers were standing there with a shy girl I'll call Olivia, now 19F. I brought them inside. The officers told me Olivia was my biological daughter. I had no clue. They also brought a DNA test, and suddenly it started making sense. For background, I had a one-night stand 20 years ago with a random woman I met at a party. That woman was married, and her husband, who I'll call Brian, found out Olivia wasn't his after Olivia took a 23M test as a small gift from a friend. And when Brian learned the truth, he exploded at Olivia and her mom, and he threw both of them out of the house. During the divorce, he told Olivia she was a lie, that he'd never consider her his daughter again, and that he never wanted to see her again. Olivia cried and begged him, because he was the only dad she'd ever known, but Brian took his name off the birth certificate and went no contact. When I asked why she wasn't staying with her biological mom, the officers told me her mom fell into a depression and started using drugs. She became verbally and physically abusive, and then there was an accident a week ago that led to CPS taking her away. I agreed to let Olivia stay with us, and she brought her bags inside. Everything felt unstable at first, and for a while she was very quiet around us. She barely talked. My wife and I tried to be as welcoming as we could. Our oldest son, Mason, took to Olivia right away. He'd always wanted a sister, so he kept trying to hang out with her and include her. Our younger son, Logan, was a newborn when she showed up, so he basically just grew up with her in the house and loved her naturally. Over time, Olivia opened up more. We got closer and closer. Then in December 2020, during a family movie night, she kissed me on the cheek and said, "I love you, Dad." We all cried, except me, LOL, but it was happy tears. Now she's a beautiful 19-year-old college student, and it honestly feels like we've had her forever, like we already raised her for those 19 years. Now here's the problem. About a week ago, I got a random message from someone I didn't recognize. When I opened it, I realized it was from Brian. It was long, so I'll paraphrase it here. He basically said, "Hi, my name is Brian. I want to talk to you about Olivia. When I found out she wasn't mine, my world fell apart. I kicked her out because I couldn't stand looking at her after the love of my life betrayed me like that. I know you didn't do anything wrong, but it still hurt." He said that over the last year, he realized she'd always be his daughter, no matter what, and that he wanted a chance to apologize. He asked me to let him see her again. At first, I wanted to tell Olivia right away, but then I remembered something from about 7 months ago. My oldest son asked about Olivia's other dad, and I overheard her say something like, "Oh, you mean my ex-dad?" She said he didn't understand how much damage he'd done, and it took her a long time to recover. I only told my wife about the message, and she told me to leave it alone and ignore it. So now I feel stuck with three options. 1. Tell Olivia about the message and risk blowing everything up again. 2. Reply myself and see where it goes. Or 3. Ignore it and let our life keep going like normal. I'm not sure what the right move is. Edit. I forgot to mention Olivia still lives at home because her college is close and she wants to save money. Just saying that in case it matters. As time went on, she did talk more openly about Brian. She says she doesn't have love or respect for him anymore. Comments. Someone asked if Olivia ever got therapy for the abandonment. They said even if she calls him ex-father, a lot of kids still want a connection, even after abuse or abandonment, and sometimes the tough talk is just a defense. They gave an example. They went no contact with their own father in their teens, didn't reconnect until their early 30s, and did therapy in their 20s because of childhood abuse from both parents. They said it didn't stop them from still wanting their parents. They admitted their story is anecdotal, but said any family therapist could tell you plenty of similar stories. Another commenter said, "I'm 45F, and I think you should leave it up to Olivia." They said I should show her the message and tell her I'll support whatever she chooses and that nothing changes for me either way. They said, "Is Brian a jerk who completely screwed up?" Yes, but he's still human. And if he hadn't screwed up, I probably wouldn't have my daughter in my life like this. They added that if Olivia were 10, they'd tell Brian to wait until she was an adult. But she's 19, so she deserves to choose. And if I hide it and she finds out later, I'll end up looking like the bad guy. I said the police strongly recommended therapy for Olivia. After the long legal process of me officially becoming her guardian, we did 2 types of therapy, one just for Olivia and one for the whole family to learn how to adjust. We did 2 years of each. Another commenter said, "Olivia is an adult and deserves the respect of knowing information about her, so she can decide for herself." They said they get that I want to protect her from more pain, but a big part of what she went through was being powerless and having no choice. They said her mom started the mess by hiding information, and I shouldn't repeat that. Olivia needs honesty, and she needs to be the one making decisions about her own life. Another commenter agreed and said, I should explain I'm not bringing it up to hurt her or reopen wounds, and I'm not pushing her either way. I'm telling her because I love and respect her, and I want her to have the chance to ask for advice and decide. Another person chimed in and basically said the same thing. Be open, tell her, and support her no matter what. Update. A lot of you said I needed to tell Olivia, so I did. After work the next day, I sat her down and we talked for a long time. When I told her Brian had messaged, she got furious and demanded to see it. She wanted to unload on him. I tried to calm her down, and then she started crying. She told me that when she first found out the truth, she still thought of him as her dad, and she was terrified he'd throw her away. After that, she had a hard time trusting people. She hugged me a lot and kissed me on the neck, and I told her if she wanted to reply, she could tell me what to do. She said she needed time to think. A few days passed, and then Olivia told me she had what she wanted to say written down. I took her page, opened Brian's message, and typed, "Hello, Brian. Olivia decided to write you a message herself. I'm attaching it below. Just know I'm not controlling what she says, and I won't force her into anything she doesn't want." Then I attached a picture of the letter she wrote. Her letter basically laid out exactly how she feels, and she told him she wants nothing to do with him anymore because, in her words, she isn't his daughter anymore. After I sent it, I closed the chat, so I don't know if he read it, but I hope he did. I think that should be my last update. I saw a rule on this subreddit that only one update is allowed. If something major happens, I'll post somewhere else. Maybe check my profile, but I really don't think it's going any further than this. That night, Olivia and the rest of us just stayed together as a family. Some people asked me to explain more about how Olivia ended up in my house in the first place, so here's what I know. I don't know every detail of Brian's divorce, but I do know he gave up all parental rights to Olivia. The part where he said he was removing his name from the birth certificate was something he screamed during the blow-up, but it was never actually removed. When Olivia's mom became abusive, a neighbor called the police one night, and Olivia was placed into foster care. The 23M test helped them figure out how to find me, and Olivia was actually the one who suggested looking for me so she could at least know who I was. That's what I was told by the people who brought her to me, so if any details sound off, that's why. I did ask more questions about how they found me, but they couldn't fully explain everything. So, that's what happened. Thanks to everyone who gave advice. Comments. Someone mentioned I could post updates on my user page if anything else comes up, and that it's a good way to keep the text if a post breaks a rule and gets removed. They also said they think Brian might try again, maybe in the summer or maybe years later. They said guilt can be powerful, and it doesn't always go away, so it could push him to reach out again. I replied and thanked them for the suggestion, but I said Brian contacted me through social media. I don't want to share specifics. I closed the chat he used, so it's unlikely he can get more information, because we were both limited to one message until I accepted his friend request, and I didn't accept it.